invite now to our online stage Elena Ortiz. We are really happy to have you here with us. Elena is the Senior Education Specialist of the IDB, Inter-American Development Bank, and she's going to lead, I think, a major part of our conference. She's going to lead a panel of practitioners, of people that are actually already developing and creating alternative practices. And we are going to now really move from different countries around the world and embrace their amazing innovation. Elena.
Thank you, Cecilia. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon, I think, where you are. Here is still the morning. But especially thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be part of the exciting conversation and very inspiring conversation you're having today. I wanted to share, Cecilia, just building on what you present about, I think what we have, in spite of the tremendous disruption students around the world have had, present also itself of a huge opportunity to really rethink the way that we work together as an education community, I want to say, something that from the IDB side we're trying to foster, to sit together, government, private sector, civil society, teachers and students. I think all voices are needed now to build back better the pandemic, like you said, the disruption it created, sending all these students at home, created huge educational gap that we need to address. But from the point of view of the bank and the 2025 vision we are trying to build is to also transform education and address the structural gaps and structural challenges we were facing before. And in the discussion that Avi was having a very interesting panel before, we're addressing this, the need to also change pedagogical practices, the way learning happens inside the classroom and in virtual environments. I think this is part of what the challenge that we have today. So I am indeed very excited to be today and to well, lead this interesting conversation and perspectives that we're going to have during the next, I think, hour or so that we have ahead of us together. So without further ado, if you agree, let me introduce the first presenter. Which is name is, sorry if I am not pronouncing, Las Laponiemi. Sorry, please correct me if I'm not doing that, didn't pronounce that correctly. That's going to talk us about one of the areas I think also has been changing since the pandemic, is to rethink the priorities in terms of content. As we know, the evidence building towards socio-emotional learning and 21st century school was important before, but clearly has taken, like the presentation title suggests, a central stage in our education systems right now. So Las, welcome, and please, the floor is yours. My understanding is that you have 5 to 7 minutes to do the presentation. So please, go ahead, welcome.
Thank you, Elena. What a pleasure to be here together with you today. And I have been enjoying so much listening these presentations earlier today and finding out all kind of wonderful things, and actually I also want to thank you Elena and the Interdevelopment Bank of Latin American countries, since we were doing the 21st century skills spotlight in the Latin American context last year. And my title today is about socio-emotional competencies and skills, and we were seeing that these skills were extremely important also in the spotlight we were doing, and we were actually receiving the new record of submissions to any of our education innovation spotlights. Over 400 submissions were sent to our way, and we were able to highlight them some wonderful solutions from the Latin American context. But in my presentation today, I will be talking to you a little bit more about the socio-emotional related aspect. And like also Cecilia was mentioning earlier today, like how we have been seeing that these things are arising within the students around the world, we have to be paying a lot attention to these things. I will be sharing my screen so you can follow my presentation. So now you should be seeing it. And so the title of my presentation is Socio-Emotional at Central Stage at Last. I could be also adding and by what cost, because if we are looking now to the last 1.5 years, like it was already elaborated, we have been seeing a lot of different kind of loneliness and depression related situations arising within our students. But before I will jump to the actual matter, I will give you a brief background of 100. So I'm the co-founder and executive director of our organization, and we are a global education non-profit organization coming from Helsinki, Finland. And what we do is that we identify education innovations around the world with our community, which is currently active in a little bit more than 100 countries, 107 countries to be precise. And now during this last 6 months, we have been having another collaborative spotlight project with the Lego Foundation, which has been focusing especially on the social emotional learning topic. And the results are still not to be revealed. We have made the final innovation selections just last week, and those will be then revealed in November. But I will be sharing some early findings and some early highlights from that research work with you today here. So this is some sort of a world premiere of these next things I'm going to show you. But where we are with this project at the moment, as you can see, the selections have been made in September. And we let the dear innovators to know that they have been selected just the last week. And these selections will be announced in November at our Innovation Summit, which will be organized also virtually this year. But let's jump to the actual kind of like findings. And when we have been doing the research, we are seeing that the social and emotional learning competencies, they help students with the long-term social outcomes. And I think this is the main reason why we should be putting a lot of focus on these things. These are something that we are not able to maybe see, immediately. Of course, we can see how the behavior and the relationships and the way how the students are acting in a classroom might be changing in a quicker matter of time. But the main outcomes will come in a longer time perspective, and these are a lot to do with the abilities of individuals, how they can cope after a difficult period of time, or some other kind of pleasant or unpleasant situations they might be encountering in their relationships or in life in general. And what is also important, that often these 21st century skills or social emotional learning skills are seen as a soft skills. I'm not a big fan of that kind of framing, because I think these are extremely vital skills for all of us to be able to navigate in our lives. And what is important, that this can be related to the academic achievements as well. So there are ways how we can assess the social emotional learning competencies as well. And that also leads us to a very important finding, and it is that of course these skills can be learned. So if we are, for example, looking this self-bucket through the CASEL framework, we can kind of like identify ways how we can learn self-awareness, management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making, just to name a few. And But then the more interesting question is that how do we actually embed this kind of things and items into our curriculums, and how we are able to make our teachers to be equipped with practices and solutions that social emotional learning competencies can be learned. And here we can find something that was also very much visible in our 21st century skills spotlight we did together with IDP, that the teacher training is having an essential part when we want to promote this kind of a solutions at the school level. And I will give you a few examples of this one to spark up the conversation. One of the kind of like, of course, the important things is that what are the ways how this kind of competencies can be used together with the curriculum, and how they can be implemented to be part of it. So if there is no framework which allows us to have these multidisciplinary skills as a part of the learning experience for our students, the teachers are in a very, very difficult position. They are not having the abilities, and they are not having the possibilities to implement these things as a part of their teaching practices and learning facilitation. So for that reason, that needs to be taken care of on the top level. But then when we are looking at the classroom level, all the actions we are taking in a classroom are also possibilities to advocate social and emotional competencies. So it's these can be the ways how the teachers are kind of like acting as a teacher in their classroom, how they talk with their students, how they discipline the students, and what kind of activities they choose for collaborative work, and how they then facilitate that work to come alive. And so therefore we also see that there are a lot of kind of like things that we should be embedding as a part of the personal development for the teachers, so that they are having the enough competencies to have the social emotional learning practices as a part of the classroom work. So these are kind of like some of the quick findings from our innovations. And just to give you a quick update, how important and how excited the education community has been about this topic. We did not treat as much as with the 21st century skills spotlight, but I think this is the good second of all our like a maximum amount of submissions for our spotlights. We have way over 300 submissions received, and based on these ones, 31 were shortlisted for further reviews and research, and over 400 reviews have been now made for these 31 innovations, so that we are really able to know that how well they are working contextually. And then I will keep that as a secret, how many of those innovations will be then actually published as a part of the spotlight selections. And this is the process we are following with our spotlight selections, and I'm very happy to invite all of you who are listening today then also to follow the social emotional learning spotlight reveal at our 100 Innovations Summit on November 5th. So you can register that one already today. But that was my quick presentation for today, and let's continue the conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's a very, I think, telling of what the trends moving now that I was talking about, and the importance that disabilities are taking. I would like you to, if you're okay, I would like you to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on the teacher training part, because we did a research with a colleague of mine here, Diana Incapié, and we actually did an assessment on Latin America just before the pandemic, but reviewing what you were saying, to the extent to which these contents are incorporated into the curriculum. And I think there was a tremendous progress being made even before the pandemic, more and more explicitly including this type of abilities in the curriculum. Also, another area that we investigated was about evaluation, because it's important in order to track progress and how these programs are working or not towards successfully developing socio-emotional skills, is to be able to evaluate and track the progress in terms of socio-emotional learning. And there also regional assessment, and even all the countries were thinking in Latin America, I'm speaking about how to introduce a certain measure of some skills, socio-emotional skills, as part of the regular assessments, student assessments they do. And then we analyze the extent to which this part was included into both pre-service and in-service training. And this is where we found, in our perspective, one of the biggest gaps in a way, because this was still not, it was a very preliminary effort being conducted, and they were included, especially in-service courses, were very conceptual, very theoretical, not a lot of mentoring or in-class real situation type of training that we know is mostly affected, in particular, like you said, because a lot of some are concepts and how to teach, but some are more in the class, how you organize your classroom and how you also lead by example in a way. So it's important to incorporate this. How do you view progress? This is our perspective. I wanted to hear you a little bit more on how training has evolved to better prepare teachers to develop these skills in the classroom.
Thank you, Elena. And my brief comment for that one is that at the moment we are seeing a lot of these multidisciplinary competencies to be embedded as a part of the national curriculums. And I think that is kind of like the first step we need to be taking. But then I would say that one of the problematic areas is that often the teacher development is not following close enough with the curriculum development, meaning that we might be addressing the coming teachers who are at the university now learning like how to facilitate and how to kind of like embed these things to be part of the teaching facilitation. But then we should be also putting a lot of emphasis like how do we provide these personal development possibilities for the teachers who have been in a profession for a longer period of time, so that they can also get the latest know-how and knowledge how to kind of like implement these new practices. And then the third point for this one is also that when we are looking at the teachers who are then willing to implement new solutions and practices, often the assumption can be that the new teachers who are fresh coming from the uni and taking their own classrooms are the ones who are super excited to try out new things. But in our research, that's not the case. We are usually seeing that teachers who have been working between maybe 3 to 6 years are the ones who are most willing to implement some new practices, because they have already enough knowledge and know-how. They know what works and how they can kind of like modify their own teaching practices in a good way. So it's a combination of providing these personal development possibilities for teachers and then kind of like backing that up with a very good teacher training. And I know that in many cases this might be problematic, but this is also something that where we should be putting resources and focus how we are able to provide that kind of competencies for our teachers.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, we could speak about this all day, but we have to unfortunately move on to our next presentation. Thank you so much, Lassie, for being with us today and for your presentation. Let me move to our next speaker that is from Brazil, Michelle Metzger, talking about how moving masses of educators in a giant country like Brazil. Michelle, please welcome. The floor is yours. And given that I see time is passing by very quickly, that we stick to 5 to 7 minute presentation, that would be great. Thank you. You're on mute. I think we cannot hear you. No. You're not on mute, but we cannot hear you. No. No, still no sound. Yeah, we cannot hear you. So Michelle, what I'm going to suggest is that we move Cecile, if you agree with our next speaker, that will give time to Michel to set up, work with his audio settings, and then we will go back to you, Michel. I'm so sorry. Yes, we still can hear you. So if Professor Anthony Maddox is ready, we can then move to hearing about his about enabling learning for all by empowering non-formal education, a critical area also for Latin America. Welcome, Professor. Can you hear us? Are you there?
I can, Elena. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
I'm not bringing him in if he's not.
Yes. No. Yeah, we hear you, Professor. Then please, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Elena. Again, good to see everyone. I hope everyone is safe and well and your families are safe and well. This will be a brief presentation to show a short journey, if you will, of what we've had at the USC Rasir School of Education. I think I should be able to share my slides. And let's see. And the journey has been interesting from a lot of different perspectives. I think you may be able to see it now, for example, and now I'll get to a presentation. Can you see that, everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. We started off a few years ago creating what's called EdVentures. We're a school of education, if you will, in Los Angeles and at USC. And the powerful part of what we do is that we have a mission of equity. Educational equity is what the School of Education is completely about. And so it pervades our courses and our partnerships and other things like that. And it's so important to do that. So the Center for Engineering and Education was conceived because my co-founder, John Brooks Slaughter, and I, as engineers in the School of Education, and with myself being a teacher educator, we tried to figure out how we could have more relevance to this big world of technology and engineering and all the different things that were happening in the ed space. So with this notion of equity in mind, we actually tried to build a partnership to build EdVentures. What did we want EdVentures to do? We wanted EdVentures to be an incubator for early stage ed tech companies. We took no equity. We wanted them to be with us and to actually work with us along the way. These are some of the list of partners we have, and the center, Northrop Grumman Foundation, graciously funded basically a center at a university as a startup. So we've been doing this for the past 4 years. This is our first cohort. We went to ASU GSV in San Diego. We've had two cohorts since then. We've had over 40 companies in the process. And it's a lot of energy, good people. We're still in touch with most, if not all of them. And we want to just make one point in this presentation in terms of what it is we've learned. Take a look at this. And you'll be able to find this online, and I may be able to kind of put it in the chat pod if I can actually do it right now. I've got a couple minutes left. It won't take long. My presentation will be really, really short. Okay, so now I ask that you search for, let's see, I ask that you search for the National Science Foundation's Center, a Center for Learning in Informal and Formal Environments. Here's the main point here. One is that the blue space is informal learning. There are lots of different definitions for that. That's where we believe a lot of the effort should be made, not just in the orange space, which is what people talk about, extremely important formal education all the way through one's life. At the same time, this informal, non-formal learning can be a powerful way for us to be able to take some of the innovations that we're actually developing, to find ways to kind of improve the economies of scale and scope of education by actually saying that, well, the kind of education that our young learners need, and all learners for that matter, can actually populate this blue space. So that's our goal. And why do we say that? We say that because in my experience in South Los Angeles as an engineer, I used to run a place-based neighborhood initiative. And this was the actual, the signature piece of that initiative was called Neighborhoods at Work. And notice that those 5 things: health, housing, employment, education, and safety. Here's what I recommend you do. Hold your hands up, and your hand represents each one of those 5 things: health, housing, employment, education, and safety. Think about that for a while. And here's what I ask you to do. Disrupt any one of them, any one you wish. Safety, health, housing, disrupt any one. How's your life now? These are 5 critical components. And one of the things that isn't quite right here, even though this is what we use, is the interconnectivity between all of these different things. So in other words, when you talk about education, you must talk about employment, you must talk about safety, you must talk about health, you must talk about housing. So the idea then is that where can we go to find things out that make that happen? We connected with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and we're considering using their systems engineering thinking to be able to craft how all these pieces fit together with the education component, the actual one we're focusing on. That's the goal. And I spent some time at JPL in the past, had a colleague there that was willing to kind of share with us and talk about these kind of things with us. And so we think there's promise in one, mining the non-formal, informal space, that blue space you saw before, using engineering thinking and systems thinking to be able to help coordinate all of that. And so our goal then is to pivot from basically functioning to support a large number of startup companies to be able to create new initiatives within the School of Education that now start to influence teacher candidates, because those are the new people coming out into schools as a School of Education, and new programs to advance these particular kinds of ideas. So we're focused on that blue space and that red rectangle right there. And we're pre-K through the first year of college. So we hope to be able to do that in our pivoting, and we'll keep in touch with you to make sure that you know exactly what it is we're doing along the way. That's it.
Thank you, Professor. I have a quick follow-up. Thank you for being on time, and I'm going to take advantage to ask you a quick question that I hope you can be also as efficient in answering that your presentation. But I would really like you to speak a little bit that blue space that I totally agree is a great opportunity. But how does that are you also working with certification, degree? I think it's an important part of making that time in learning outside formal networks needs to go in hand with developing different type, not the long, necessarily the long-term diplomas we have right now, but we need to think about how to certify the skills that you learn during that time. So are you also working on that, and how do you see that challenge?
Well, Elena, yes, we are working on that because we've been involved with the community of practice between the Qatar Foundation and the World Bank. And one of the things we've learned is that skills, crypto credentialing of skills, we believe is going to be important. We're taking our bets on that. Because when you get a degree, you really don't know the person who's hiring you. They really don't know your skills. They don't know them at all. They only know the degree. But in the future, we believe to handle the difficult problems, we'll need to know skills. So the blue space, as well as the orange space that you saw, can be used for that. So our goal is to see how we can make that happen, how we can have skills in a variety of people's hands, and then you'll signal to employers, you'll signal to those who are interested that you have the skill set necessary, and you can keep improving and moving those skill sets in the blue space, hopefully at a lower cost and in a more convenient kind of way. Elena, is that reasonable to kind of get a sense of? Totally.
Thank you so much. I agree very much with your perspective. So thank you very much. Let me move on quickly. We have I think Michelle is back. So actually, instead of moving forward, I'm gonna step back for a minute to give Michelle the opportunity to talk about the Brazil case. Michelle, are you there?
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. Okay. Welcome. Good to hear you.
Thank you.
So please.
For having me.
Yes, please. Welcome, and the floor is yours for the next 5 to 7 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay. I want to share my screen to show a little bit of Brazilian education and how unboxing movement is doing a good job here. Well, to better understand what's happening in Brazil, we need to show you a little bit of how large is Brazilian education and how complex is that kind of mixing particular and private schools and public schools, and in that context, how the government is very complex, and we have more than 5,000 cities in the country, And the governance of basic education is very complex because we have early childhood and elementary schools in the municipality government, and states have middle and high schools. The federal government have the higher education. But in that scenario, we have a complex scenario. We have many people and many kinds of necessities mixing together. And that is, it was before the pandemic. With the pandemic, we have a much more complex context. The school closure in Brazil was one of the biggest in the world. Officially was 40 weeks, but we have many students that didn't show up until now. But the gaps in social gaps and inequity are much larger now than before the pandemic. Not only the internet and connection access for students, we have much more problems, food problems. We have many problems that we hadn't before, but now we have in much more dramatic way. And that brings an enormous impact on student learning. We have research in São Paulo, it's the biggest state in Brazil, showing that we have learning loss in language, in math, and it's very hard to it's a big challenge. And we have, with that scenario, we have many challenges for the post-COVID time. The biggest challenge is equity. How can we bring the students back to school? How can we provide learning in a personalized way? Because we have many levels of students. We have students that didn't show up, didn't learn many things in almost two years. And in the same classroom, we have many levels of knowledge. And personalization is very important in that moment. And more than this, we need more time, more ways to learn, because only the school time isn't enough. But with that, we have a new vision of teachers. Teachers now, they know that technology is a powerful tool. We saw in many research that the vision of teachers changed a lot in Brazil. We have almost every week new research with teachers, with families, students, showing that now they believe and they use much more technology in the learning process. And that opened to us in Positivo an opportunity to bring unboxing to Brazil. First of all, Positivo Tecnologia changed his educational area to a new brand called Educacional, and changed it to the mission of this area. Now we see as as doing part of an ecosystem. And ecosystem is a new way to see the things in education. We are not alone, and we must create a shared space with many stakeholders. So we thought unboxing as a good way to introduce this new view. We focused this first meeting in Portuguese language because we saw that if we focus in areas of knowledge, we can bring solutions we can discuss in a concrete way. So we started with language, and we plan to bring to math and STEAM and other areas. In this meeting, we brought together many stakeholders from public and private schools, and networks, government networks, foundations, and edtechs. And it was a very, very special moment. With that meeting, we have some outcomes, and the main outcome is a report that we could understand better the unboxing movement potential in Brazil.
Michel, I'm sorry, I'm gonna need you to just start wrapping up. I'm sorry, we still have more presentations to go. Can you wrap up in 1 minute, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
The main reflection we have with unboxing movement is the quest for mobilize the ecosystem and bring data, educational data is essential with what we saw, transform data points in learning points, and the movement of boxing and unboxing education. In education, we love boxes. So we must change and recycle the boxes we are using. So that's the main reflection we brought with the unboxing in Brazil.
Thank you, Michel. Sorry to cut you short, but I want to leave enough time for our other speakers to present, and I'm gonna skip also my question. I have several questions I would like to ask you, but I'm gonna jump to the next one, and then hopefully we can have a few minutes at the end to have some questions. But I would like to get everyone the opportunity to speak. So thank you so much for presenting. And then I would like to invite Dimeji, please. Fanana, if are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for being here. So please, we'd love to hear about your initiative for mobiles at the front of accessibility. And I will ask you also, be mindful of the time. So around 5 to 6 minutes, let's try to keep it a little bit short so everyone has a chance to speak. But welcome, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me once again. I'm really happy to be here. Once again, my name is Dimeji Falana. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Edvest Limited. Edvest is a Nigerian edtech company operating from Lagos. And what we do, we built a digital infrastructure to digitize the entire process of the journey of the student in pre-K-12, that is from student enrollment all the way to graduation, to ensure that tedious operations that prevent administrators and teachers and parents in focusing on learners' progress is, all these tedious processes are out of the way. And so far, we are currently, we've automated over 800 schools in Nigeria and also in Ghana and Zimbabwe. Mobility is part of what we are trying to, what we try to innovate around, talking about the mobile phone and also desktop system. So I would like to just cut a bit of all our interventions and then talk about the mobile aspect alone. And I'll be sharing my screen to just talk about it in about 5 slides. So thank you for paying attention. Thank you very much. So my screen I have here, please let me know when you can see my screen. Okay, thank you very much. So mobile phone, I will be speaking in the context of Nigeria more and Africa. Mobility, talking about use of mobile phone, we cannot remove economy from quality education. They are interconnected because if parents and guardians are able to make money, make a living, then they will be able to send kids to school, both public and private schools. And this is what we've seen over the years, that education is an highlight of economy, and we cannot remove them in totality. And that will determine my direction of speaking this afternoon. It's going to be short. And I decided to start with mobile economy because we have seen a leapfrog in Nigeria and Africa when you see that the rest of the world now copy Africa when it comes to mobile money transaction generally, because Africa, joined the couch of innovation using the mobile technology. Adoption is really, really high here because we did not innovate that much in the days of landlines and so many other, old technology. So mobile phones are everywhere. And the economy of mobile phone is so huge. And that's why we are now looking at the way people adopt technology for payment and finances, and for us to leverage on this for learning, because we cannot separate learning from economy. So the statistic we have here is from GSMA, and talking about 2025, 50% of Africans will subscribe to at least one service on the mobile phone, which is telling us that not just only going to be like we are buying the mobile phone, but actually using the mobile phone to subscribe to one service or the other. And financial transaction in 2020 was over $490 billion, which means that Africans attach so much importance to device, which is the phone. So, and we believe that the device, if there is this trust in using phone to do financial transaction, then they can use the phone to also adopt education. To have access to education. Then also talking about the internet users, mobile internet users in Africa will be above 470 million by 2025. And when we say 2025, we're only talking about maybe 3 years from now. And also 64% of Africans, will have adopted technology, and that's a population of about 2 billion by that 2025. That's talking about the population in that aspect. So then we want to make sure that this particular love for mobile phone usage to do financial transaction is also transferred to gaining access to learning. And from our organization, we have built a digital infrastructure to automate learning and administration in schools, so that the entire stakeholders and the entire community can depend on the infrastructure to carry on activities in administration and learning. And during the COVID lockdown, we saw a rise in the usage of phones and to engage The mobile phones were used to connect even desktop system to internet connectivity because of the mobile broadband. The internet phone was used to transfer money. It was used to learn, to watch video, to send SMS, to do USSD. And we now saw, from the angle of mobile learning, we have the micro learning and then the macro learning. The micro learning, we were able to digitize the content in a micro bit-sized format for students to consume via USSD and SMS, talking about the students that are in remote area. And also the students that have access to technology, we empower their teachers to record video. About 14,000 videos were recorded and shared across our platform within the first 3 months of pandemic last year. And we were able to see teachers create content and share with their students. And the reason why we're doing this is because we know for sure that there is a connection of teacher to students. Teachers, when the students see their teachers, they know their languages, they understand each other. So we decided not to create our own content, but by empowering the schools to be able to create their content. And this actually gave rise to learning. And then even on the phone, we were able to conduct a lot of exams on desktop and on the phone, seeing students using their parents' phone to actually attend to end of the term examination, which was actually used to grade. And also getting the parent to receive the report of their students on phone via SMS, via just a simple Lincoln phone, and then they have all the report they can get. And because we know that in Africa and Nigeria, both the rich and the poor are using mobile phone. And that's why we decided to leverage on this power to engage students on learning and to empower the teachers to deliver lessons through this.
Thank you.
And thank you. I'm done. This is the team.
Excellent, excellent. Great timing. Brought it to an end perfectly there. Thank you, Dimeji. I'm gonna continue. Unfortunately, the race that we have to meet the time. Thank you so much for a very, very interesting perspective and about the work you're doing in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes, please, thank you for being here. Let me move on to Samir, please.
Hi, I'm here.
You're here. There. Excellent. Hello. Welcome, Samir. So please, now I would like to give the floor to you, the video to you in this virtual format to talk about technology from aiding tool to a school setting. So please.
So just sharing my presentation with all of you and try to be as brief as possible so that Elena's job is easy. I'm from the city of Gurgaon, but I represent a group of schools, Shivnadar schools, which were conceived by our founder, Mr. Shivnadar, who wanted to create equitable merit-based society. And the only way to do that is through transformative education. Yes, so let's look at the pre-pandemic classrooms. This is probably a conventional classroom where the teacher is at the center of everything. There are children around. Of course, there's technology. There are notebooks. That's what a classroom looked like. And probably a little more progressive classrooms look like where teacher is not at the center of the classroom and the kids are around. And of course, through social interaction, all the learning is taking place. And of course, I'm representing a group of schools who are advantaged, who have access to technology, and technology was an aid to teaching. And it was prerogative of a rich, elite, and gifted schools like ours, where the organization could provide teachers and enable them through training to use technology. Every teacher had the personal device, and student either had sponsorship or they have parents could afford providing them technology. So now what has changed? Let's look at that. So what did the pandemic change? I think a very interesting scenario would be, an ideal case scenario would be where I'm teaching and all my students are on the screen, but the reality was very, very different. This is what a typical classrooms look like. And now, even though technology adaptation in the school enabled teachers to use the use that technology as an aid efficiently, the larger questions we were grappling with were, can we use technology to create an online school? Can we use timetables we used in a physical space and online space? Were we teaching remotely, or was online learning happening effectively? We all as schools continue to struggle measuring the efficacy of teaching and learning. And if the school to be reimagined to be the same when it was in physical space, what was the missing piece? So I think typically our conventional idea of a school is there is a good infrastructure, there are great teachers, there's technology, aided by laboratories, makerspace, great playgrounds, and all that leads to holistic education. Now, all that has come down to a 13 or a 14-inch screen, right? From laboratory to co-scholastic to music to sports, everything is in the screen. So what was the missing piece? We continue to struggle with that. And we refer to an interesting framework. It's called Community of Inquiry framework, which is a good reference point to design and inform online and blended teaching and learning. And the framework is basically grounded in collaborative constructivism and interconnected three presences: cognitive presence, social presence, and teaching presence. And it focuses on building a community of learners who can make meaning through collaboration, through interaction with each other. So what is cognitive presence? The cognitive presence is basically ability of a student to make meaning through a process of dialogue, inquiry, and reflection. What is teaching presence? Teaching presence is an ability of a teacher to design, facilitate instructional program effectively. And what was the missing piece in that context? So we found the missing piece was the social presence. The social presence is the learner's ability to see. I think there's also talked about it. It's the learner's ability to see themselves emotionally and socially as real selves, also view their classmates as real people, and communicate effectively online. So now, lack of social presence, this missing factor, also led to depletion of cognitive presence because kids could not relate to each other, kids could not talk to each other, teachers could not talk to them. It led to a depletion in cognitive presence. And of course, the teachers' motivation level were all-time low because they were teaching, but was learning happening or not? And if the learning was happening, the efficacy of teaching and learning was in question. Constantly, we were questioning that. So how do we build in social presence? How did we try to build in social presence? And why did we do that? So I think one of the major aspects we learned in the process is, I think it has been talked about, empathy being part of teaching and learning, humanity being part of teaching and learning. This been talked about by my predecessors who talked about it. We focused a lot on relationship building, then delivery of content. We said, please focus on pastoral care. Devote initial time, do fireside chats, keep your rooms open from half an hour, 15 minutes before the class starts. So the kids who want to connect with you or connect with each other, they have an informal setting beyond the context of just delivering the content. We also created safe spaces. We allowed children to write to the counselors, write to the teachers, seeking appointment and seeking time to talk. We also talked about making sure that every assignment is a collaborative assignment. We realized that the only way to build a social presence between students is to allow them to work together. So most of our assignments became collaborative tasks, which in a physical space would have been a pen paper assessment or an assignment. It has been talked a lot, and I cannot say more stress on building student agency. I think the learning is happening constantly. The idea is, how are we measuring that learning and what is our objective of that learning to happen? So we allowed students to decide what kind of assessments they want to go through. So autonomy of assessment is one of the ways to build student agency. How and when they want to turn in their assignments, in what format do they want to, whether that's a PowerPoint presentation or that's a video or a very, very simple tool, threaded discussions. We just used Edmodo. A teacher posted a topic and the students were allowed to have conversations as a threaded discussion. And what threaded discussions typically end up doing is they allowed students to classify or add descriptive metadata tags to responses, for example, disagreements, opinions, likes, and that again strengthened the social presence in the classroom. We also allowed children to build social profiles on learning management systems. A lot of students, trust me, in last 1.5 years, since March 2022, we have inducted into our school. We've taken into a school who have not seen us physically at all. They have not come back to physical space. So how do they know each other? How do they know their peer? So we encourage students to create their profiles. And there are a lot of platforms available for that. And that's how they started looking at each other as real people who have interests like them, who like to game probably, who like to share interesting anecdotes about their weekly schedule at home. So I think these were the important factors we built in our curriculum. We were very cognizant of the fact that until we address the issue of social presence, the cognitive and teaching presence is not going to be effective and effective. So what's next? This is a very interesting question. I think as we prepare to return to new normal, we have to keep 3 scenarios in mind. The pandemic will begin to recede, has already begun to recede in some countries in 2021 or maybe early 2022. The school I work with right now, Shiv, and other schools, post November 10th, we are encouraging to everybody to come back and return to school in full swing. The second scenario could be there could be more than one recovery visions. Now I'm going to talk about recovery visions quickly. And remember, no single scenario fits all the institutions. Every institution's context, its journey, its community would matter in terms of making what decision we take. And I referred to an interesting article called Emerging from the Pandemic in Educare IT. They talked about 3 scenarios. The schools who will go into the restore mode, the schools who want to derive learning from the pandemic and evolve, and the schools who understand what is the way forward. I think my predecessor talked about mobile learning. That's a very interesting take, and transform themselves. And it's interesting to see how the top 5 priorities span out in each way. And in my opinion, I think some schools will land between 2 scenarios as well. They want to be restoring and evolution also. But it's interesting to see how schools who were in the restorative mode, that means they want to return back to the normal pre-pandemic era, the focus was on cost management, online learning, and financial health. I'm just going to pick up top 3. While the institutions who are looking at using those learnings to evolve into learning institutions and communities, they focus on advancing student success by providing support and making sure that every student's academic goals and career goals are aligned with teaching and learning practices in the school. The next goal, which yes.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to jump in and ask you for a 15-second wrap up.
Perfectly fine. And I think you can see the third element is online learning. I may not spend too much of time here. I think the institutions who are looking at transforming themselves, they're looking at building up an institution culture in alignment with how technology is changing the world. And that's very, very important. I think the technology itself is not transformative. Let's be clear on this. It's the school, the pedagogy that is transformative. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you for that quick wrap up, and thank you for a very interesting presentation that I connect a lot with. Michelle, we didn't have time to discuss after, but I see the topics of really rethinking, a common thread of rethinking our educational approach in these new environments and how to make use of these tools in a different way to build a better educational experience for our students. So thank you so much. Let me go to Eloisa, that is our last presenter of the session, that has waited patiently for this spot now. Eloisa, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Welcome, Eloisa. Please,
Thank you.
Let's start, and we'd love to hear from your startup integration to enable effective changes. So please.
Yeah, I'm going to share my presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So first, I would like to say thank you very much. This is a very interesting event, and I think that's, I'm not going to add a lot of information about some specialists that were commenting about, the consequence of pandemic, but it's a pleasure sharing my experience as principal, as an educator, okay, for everybody. So welcome to this presentation. First of all, I would like to show you, so what is our mission and vision in our schools, mainly in Seco Castillo International School. And I think that it's related to the global concept that we are serving at that time, okay? Our mission is to educate international, well-balanced and open-minded learners. And also our vision is to get or to be a model for academic, pedagogical and sport, example around the world. I would like to give you, the context after COVID, this pandemic, that at the beginning, everybody, was thinking about what is happening. anyone didn't know very well, so to choose the right pathway, well, and it was like a threat, okay, for everybody. In our case, we follow the international, we follow the recommendation from international and national organization, and you have one of the examples that's it's very clear for us for the schools. If I have to compare how was the beginning of the pandemic and how we are, probably there are these two key words that define our real context. So we have to be careful. We need to collaborate to continue in this collaboration, and thanks to the education and thanks to the technology, we are going to get it. And also we are going to say probably next year bye-bye to the limits, forgetting, the happiness and the social distance, for collaborating again in a different way. So I divide the presentation into three most important parts. The first one was from the beginning of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, where everybody, we were in this situation. And also we started giving tips and training for online classes. At the beginning, we gave some online learning web pages, as you can check in this slide. For example, top 25 learning tools for when a school is closed, for home learning, strategies for online learning. I think that's, very useful for everybody around the world. And also some, we gave some pieces of advice for parents, and we sent this web page where children could speak with families about the pandemic. After the collaboration from different technological and educational conferences, and also with different startups around the world, we created, as a consequence of these situations, our own platform where we offer an online working, learning, and collaborative environment. And also we start showing the families and the staff and the students how to access to this platform. And also the use of Teams, that instead of using Zoom, in our case was Teams. And also we pay attention about these four key concepts: how to communicate, how to use the synchronous collaborative editing of all types of file, the management of calendars and meetings, and also to try to add various applications to expand the scope of its operation. Also, we were thinking about the possibility of that teachers will be the owners and administrator of the different channels, and to open different ones depending on the situation. Also, we can follow the explanation online. Well, that was new for everybody, and also we were improving with the use of Teams and other platforms from technological point of view, how to learn and how to teach online learning. Okay, and also we're thinking about the use of videos, that there was not, for the teachers sometimes, and also from some families, from some students, that was not right. And also we tried to give some tips, okay, about the use of video. Okay, and also we need to design protocols about distance learnings, comparing and dividing into two age groups: for early childhood and the primary, and also for secondary and baccalaureate. So we started paying attention about the organization, subjects to be taught, how to learn and to teach in a blend of synchronous and asynchronous experience, how to prepare a timetable, periods of time for working with the students at home or with independent, online lessons. Also, the management of remote classes, okay, to record, expected that students to own class timetables platforms in different periods of time. Teachers, we suggest that teachers should leave activities for the students to do asynchronously time, well, some tips and some for this distance learning in different stages. And also, then I'm going to copy and paste this link in our chat, okay? Because it's a video only as a summary about this first part in the case of early childhood and primary. Another example of primary where students in an exhibition share with other students, families, and a founder of NGOs this very important topic, the poverty, and also they connect with the COVID, okay? And well, so the same, I can share some of the video. And also some differences in this distance learning with secondary, baccalaureates, and the different programs using more platforms and smart enabling learning, okay? For these specific ages. And also we created timetables and also be of time for spending, for doing different activities. And well, also the management of the classes and well, some differences between the, you know, the youngest students and the oldest one, okay? And also, this is another examples about the way of working at home, okay, of secondary, I don't know what's happening with the presentation. Sorry, I'm going to, I don't know what's
I'm gonna take this opportunity to just give you the 1 minute left warning in your time.
Wow, I'm sorry, yeah, okay. So probably I'm going to it's because I don't know what is happening with the presentation because I am at the beginning. Well, yeah, I am here. Second and also the third part. So the main challenges for the last academic year, there was continue with the remote learning, okay? Because when there was some positive in our classroom, so again, they have to go back at home and we continue with the remote learning in a hybrid combination. And also the participation of the students, as you can see in these videos of the students in how to learn and in this new situation, and also how to work with the technology and also with science and art. We have some examples also in these videos, okay? And the use of robotic for improving so the lesson with the student, the outdoor learning in the different stages, and also only to to tell you and to inform about that SEK institution is a SECLAB education and technological accelerator in Spain, okay, since this year. And also for concluding, also I'm going to copy the web page. I'm going to finish with some of the new projects combining, education and technology. That is to get better evidence for learning. So with a new way of learning, where all the activities, the curriculum, the extracurricular activities are gathering in the way of teaching for our to collaborate. Not only with our institution, also in an international way, and also to pay attention about the profile dimensions of our students. And also, well, again, is the mission and vision. I don't know what is, sorry. I finished because I know that I don't know what is happening with the presentation. Well, that's everything.
Thank you.
Sorry for time.
No, it's okay. We were running many interesting things to say and not enough time for sure. But thank you so much for your presentation. I'm gonna hand it over to Cecilia. My understanding is that we are building into the same already, stealing a little bit of time for the next session. So I'm gonna refrain myself from making any questions about the very, very interesting presentations that you all had with us today. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Nemo Mindset and all the presenters. Thank you for this around the world tour, I would say, of innovations in a short amount of time. I learned a lot personally, and I'm sure the audience that were with us today as well. So thank you, Cecilia. Back.
Elena, thank you so much. As you said, and I agree with you, I know we are over our time, but I think it's extremely important not only to talk, conceptualize, but to bring the practices that people that are there, hands-on, and actually bringing all these content ideas to the practice. So as you said, we did a tour around the world and we showed a little bit, a taste of these examples from around the world. Elena, thank you so, so much.